Hello and welcome back to Rehydrate. This season we'll be watching and discussing the Netflix TV adaptation of Lisa Shin's Three Body Problem. This is Season 9, Episode 1, Destroy of Worlds, covering Episodes 1, 2, and 3. The hosts have all read the entire series and have watched up to at least up to the current episode and have other experience with media. My name is Dan. I have done all of those, plus I've watched the Tencent adaptation, all 30 episodes of the Chinese version of it.
My name is Talia. I have only seen up to the first three of the Netflix show, and I've seen like the first 10 or so of the Tencent adaptation.
My name is Priya. I've read all the books and I have seen this entire show. And I think I've watched maybe a couple of episodes of the Tencent adaptation.
So, just a couple of notes about the show. Our plans for this season are to break up the season into three parts. Basically, this episode's covering one, two, and three. The next episode we're covering episodes four and five, and then the last episode we're covering six, seven, and eight. They will be the entirety of this season will have all spoilers for the entire book and the entire series. We're going to try to focus on the series, but Priya and I have both watched the entire series already, so we might not be able to help ourselves and something might slip. So I recommend watching the entire series if you're spoiler averse, but they will definitely include entire spoilers for the entire Remembrance of Earth Past series. And finally, we have also put most of the episodes on YouTube now. We have a YouTube channel which we'll link on the website in case like you for some reason want to watch YouTube, and hopefully it's more discoverable and shareable and that kind of stuff there. So let's just go right into the summary of what happens in each episode. Again, we're covering episodes 1, 2, and 3. So in episode 1, we have Ye Wenjie visiting her father being killed by the Red Guard during the Cultural Revolution in China for not denouncing science. Back in the present day, Clarence Dasher finds the body of another scientist who has committed suicide after writing a countdown on the wall in blood. At the Oxford Particle Accelerator, Saul is working and confused as to why all the experiments are wrong. After a brief conversation with him, his boss and Ye Wenjie's daughter, Vera, commits suicide. Ye is given the opportunity to work at a secretive Red Coast base. Even with the understanding that she can never leave, she immediately accepts. After Vera's funeral, Augie, who has been seeing a countdown in her eyes, steps outside alone and encounters a mysterious woman, Tatiana, who tells her to look at the sky tomorrow at midnight. She says, "Has the universe ever winked at you?" Jin visits Ye Wenjie and finds that Vera has left behind a helmet for a VR game that her mother said she had been obsessed with. Back at Red Coast, Ye Wenjie is informed of the true mission of the base, which is to make contact with extraterrestrial life. Meanwhile, Saul and Augie are at the observatory when they observe the stars flickering or winking at them exactly at midnight, as Tatiana had said. The flickering is in a code that reveals the same numbers that Augie has been seeing on the countdown in front of her eyes.
Episode 2. Augie watches the first successful test of her nanomaterial cutting a diamond, but informs her team that they must shut down the project right after which the countdown disappears. At Red Coast Base, Ye Wenjie works out how the sun can amplify a radio signal and tells Yang, who steals the credit for the idea and brings it to Lei. They are both chastised by Lei for not considering the political symbolism and forbidden from using this method. However, Ye sends her signal at the sun during a routine test broadcast shortly afterward. Will Downing gets a call from his doctor during the class he is teaching and later tells Jack that he has pancreatic cancer with a life expectancy of 2 to 6 months. In the game, Sofan tells Jin that she has cleared level 1 by successfully choosing science over mysticism. Shortly after, Jack receives his own helmet and begins playing the game. All the while, Dasha is watching and listening in on them to collect intel for Wade. In 1977, Ye meets Mike Evans, who is living in China and trying to save an endangered bird species. During this time, she also encounters Tang Hongjing, the Red Guard who killed her father at a work camp. She has been living a hard life and lost her arm to gangrene, yet refuses to repent for killing Ye Jitai. Back at the base, Ye receives a reply to the message that was sent 8 years ago from a self-described pacifist imploring her, "Do not answer. claiming that if she does, their people will come and conquer Earth. Disillusioned with humanity, Ye sends a reply that they should come and that she will help them conquer this world.
Episode 3. Jin and Jack play the game in two-player mode, and Jin correctly presents her findings that the planet is trapped in a 3-star system, advancing them both to level 3. Jin has dinner at Raj's family house. Raj's father tells a story from the Indian army during the Kargil War and talks about single-handedly saving his men by killing everyone in an enemy camp to take their resources so that his men could all survive. In the game, Sofon tells them that they have made it to the final level after Jin identifies that there is no solution to the three-body problem, and that the physics was a red herring for the true purpose of the game, salvation of the people. Mike Evans reads the fairy tale of Hansel and Gretel to the Santi over an intercom, while the voice of Sofon makes chilling queries about the fear instinct in humans. Jin and Jack meet Tatiana at the level 4, a physical meetup, and they enter the VR world where Sofon reveals that the inhabitants of the game world are a real civilization who are currently on an interstellar space fleet that is destined for Earth so that they can survive. Jack thinks that this explanation is a scam and leaves the meeting. Jin seems to believe Sofon and talks further with Tatiana, who reveals that the Trisolarans are real and that they are referred to as the Santi. Jack returns home and is confronted by Tatiana, who murders him. Dasher is outside keeping watch with binoculars, but is unable to see the murder taking place. With that, the conclusion of episode 3, I will take us into the characters. So we're going to go over the characters and when it's appropriate, their book analogs. So there's Ye Wenjie, an astrophysicist. Ye Jitai, Ye Wenjie's father, professor. Tang Hongjing, the red guard that kills Ye Jitai. Shaolin, Ye Wenjie's mother. Clarence Shi, or Da Shi, is Shiqiang, the police officer working for Thomas Wade. Vera Ye, Yang Dong, the daughter of Ye Wenjie, who works at the particle accelerator. And the Oxford Five, which comprise Saul Durand as Luoji, who works at the Oxford Particle Accelerator. Jin Cheng, Cheng Xin, or Xin Cheng, an analog for both Cheng Xin and Wang Miao. Augie Salazar, another analog for Wang Miao, who works on nanofibers and owns a nanotech company. Jack Rooney, perhaps Hu Wen, an Oxford dropout who owns his own snack company. Will Downing, Yun Tianming, physics professor. Raj Varma, Zhang Beihai, naval officer. Mike Evans, son of a rich oil baron, an environmentalist. Thomas Wade, leader of a global military-like organization. Tatiana, follower of the Santi, a member of Evans and Ye's organization. Bai Mulin, who betrays Ye Wenjie by giving her a silent spring and then lying about it when she's caught. Lei Zhicheng, leader of the Red Coast base. Yang Weining, chief technician at Red Coast base, who also betrays Ye Wenjie. Sofon, the AI representation of the Santi. And Follower, an AI NPC that needs to be saved in the three-body game.
All right, thank you very much. So with all of that out of the way, I'd say let's just jump into discussion. And as we are wanting to do on this show, let's, I think, start with general impressions. I guess I can go first. I, like everybody, was apprehensive about, an adaptation on the screen of something that we are all very passionate about and we love. But to me personally, I think they nailed it. Like I love the show. So, in this first season, I think they did an extraordinary job. If anything, I think they stuck to the books more than I thought they were going to. I thought they were going to like really change a lot of different things. But as you're watching it, you're like, oh, I know that, I know that, I know that. I know why they're setting that up. Will with the fairy tales book and like in the boats and all the stuff that they set up. Had just everything was just fantastic. I loved like every episode. I thought it was great. A couple quibbles here and there. They got rid of the factions, which is unfortunate. That was like the big omission, but I understand why they did it for the compactness of the story. But there's a lot of talk online about like, oh, the internationalization of the cast is whatever, and all the actors were great. I particularly liked the relationship between Will and Jin. I thought that added like way more than they did in the books with the relationship between Yuntin Ming and Changxi, and really is going to set up that reunion later on. Like really be way more impactful than it was in the books. I think. I mean, to me, that was the most impactful thing in the books as it was, and this is going to make it that much more because like we have that really established relationship between those two. But we'll get into it more. But overall, like super positive on the show. How about you, Priya?
Yeah, I have very, very few, if any, gripes about this show. I was very, very pleased. And I think we were talking about how, like, a few of us had concerns about Weiss and Benioff being on this project because of how season 8 of Game of Thrones went. And um, while that was like a, a reasonable apprehension to have, I think that uh, they really, they really went back to their, back to showing off their true talents, I feel, because so many elements of this were done so right. And I think that they really remain true to the story despite these changes that were made. And I honestly was discussing with Sid as I was watching this that I don't at all mind this diversification of the characters. I think that it makes the show more digestible to a broader audience. And it also serves like a practical purpose that sets up the conflict from the get-go as a global one. And we still have them remaining really true to the heart of the story, which is through the base the backdrop story of Ye Wenjie and the origin of the conflict, which I think is like a really good balance. And I was looking at on the Netflix site, there's some articles about the series, and there's a really nice character page that kind of maps out all the characters that are in play in the show. And there's some quotes from Benioff saying that this is very much a story about humanity and humanity's struggle with a seemingly unsolvable mystery that snowballs into a full-on existential crisis. So we wanted to represent as much as possible all of humanity. We wanted people from all over the world. We tried to make this a very diverse international cast to represent the idea that this isn't just one country's struggle, it's a global struggle to survive. And I think that that really, really comes across in the casting. My only gripe was that sometimes I forgot which country we're in because like all the Oxford Five have like different accents. Like some of them are American, one is a Kiwi, one is then a couple of them are British. So it's like which country are we in again? But that's not really a gripe. That's just like a little disorienting. But I overall appreciated that.
And I think like on top of that, like I think like you mentioned, like having them know each other at the same time is also I think it also added to the story, right? Because like we know like the beginnings of the book one runs concurrently with the beginnings of book two and three, right? Or close enough. And so like having them kind of all know each other, like we know later on that like Chengxin is going to run into Luo Ji, right? And so like having them know each other like makes that even more impactful as well, I think.
Yeah, totally agree.
Wow, you both have made really good points. I would agree that my impression of the 3 episodes I've seen so far has been very positive. I really enjoyed it. The pacing's been really good. It's been uh, fun and true enough to, as Priya was saying, the point of the book, if not necessarily the characters. And anyone who's talking about the characters not being one for one, like Liu Cixin is not a character driven. Like this is no Pride and Prejudice. He doesn't pour so much attention into his characters that they can't afford to be split up and made composite. Especially since they're being adapted for a Western audience. And yes, Wang Miao is split several ways, but the fact that they can speak to each other really does eliminate a lot of other really pointless characters. Like if you actually remember back in book one, we go on a meandering like 6-page excursion of Wang Miao goes to the optometrist, who is not just the optometrist, but like the optometrist somehow has a spouse that knows his wife. All of this has zero payoff whatsoever. And it's all accomplished in Jin leaning over and saying, like, hey, did your eye doctor have anything to say? And Augie's saying, no, she doesn't know. And that's it. So I really appreciate just how something which at times can feel so bloated about book one can really, be cut through the fat. I do have gripes about this, and they're all about just the speed that they're choosing to go through the moments here in Three Body. I like the pacing between the scenes and the characters, but I feel like not a lot of, but there are a few specific moments that feel very flat because they don't have any context around them and they feel rushed. That's going to be a book gripe all the way through, but I'm really impressed and excited to bring a lot of positivity uh, to this record and to this this series so far. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
That's so funny that you mentioned the eye doctor scene in the book because I am listening to the books on audiobook again because watching the show made me realize, and also Dan's impeccable memory of the books, which I now realize is just a product of how many times
It's
he's
just
read them.
repetition. We just remember more because we've read. But anyway, what
Yes,
about the
the, the
audiobook?
the recall is so impressive. And I realized how much I've forgotten. So I'm just re-experiencing the books on audiobook. And I just today listened to this scene at the eye doctor's and I didn't even make that connection where this is a quick little exchange between Jen and Augie. Oh, did you see the neurologist? Did you see the eye doctor? And
That's
it's like,
all it
you're
needs to
so
be.
right. Yes, exactly. It's totally on point.
So incredibly meandering, and the entire point of the exchange is just that like we need to eliminate an obvious choice. Because if I said, "Hey, I'm sort of seeing things," you'd be like, "Oh, see an eye doctor." Because if you didn't include it, it would be a big hole in the book that the redditors would hop onto.
It was
So
also
it's
like a nice character moment too, because like if you remember right, Jin says, "Oh, did you go see the eye doctor or the optometrist?" And then
key,
Augie says,
yeah.
"Yes," and she goes like, "Oh, what did he say?" I mean, it was a she, and she's like, "Oh, yeah." Like
Jesus,
we're both
yeah.
doctors. Like we just went through this conversation with this guy who was like in the bar who was, underestimated us, and now here I am underestimating
Exactly. It's
us.
also it's also evidence that like they know about each other and care about each other as opposed to
Yeah,
like you watch something like a Marvel movie or whatever and there's these people who are allegedly, cooperating, but they don't really like have anything like that proves that they know each other and care about each other in the moment, but like who knows about your health concerns, like your close friends. It does
yeah.
work.
So this leads me into a theory that I intentionally didn't spoil you guys on, but I read online, and that's
Oh,
why like
okay.
in the character summary, I put all the character notes and I put like question marks after Augie because like Augie is like Wong Miao, right? Clearly because she's a nano material scientist. But what happens later on? And so because of like the friendship that she has with Jin, the theory I read online is that she eventually becomes AA, which would be like that.
Oh, cool.
I was like, oh, that would make perfect sense, right? Like, because like they're best friends, like later on, right? And so like who better to have as like her current best friend, come to her, come to the future with her and like
I
help
do
her on Halo.
remember when I was giving Death Send to my partner to read, like way back before I was guesting on the show for the first time, like I was just so excited trying to push Three Body on everyone I knew. One of his gripes was like, well, since when did Chongqing and AA become besties anyway? Because he didn't really feel like they'd had enough like time together to be as close as the book indicated. So I think that'd be a really cool theory.
Yeah, I saw it on a Reddit post, and the one good Reddit post I've seen in the sea of negativity that is the Three Body Reddit.
Yeah, they definitely have been griping
Oh my
about
God, it's so
things
like it's so
a little bit more
gatekeepy, like
gatekeepy and occasionally racist than the gripes that we have.
and sexist and
Oh
like
yeah, all the
Oh
ifs,
my God.
really.
right. It's like what you
This
expect from
is
Reddit.
this is convincing me I should continue to stay off the subreddit because
It's probably for the better.
Yeah. I'm so glad, honestly, I'm so glad I found you guys off the subreddit because I went on it because I needed somebody to talk to about the show, or like I just needed like people to talk to about the show. And then I found like I feel like I found the best people, and then I had no reason to go back on the subreddit because I
Aw.
found like normal people. Yes, that is a warm fuzzy compliment to you both. Um but yeah, I'm glad. Other than memes and GIFs, I don't want to be on the subreddit.
Yeah, the memes are good, except like they repeat them like all the time. Like I see the same
Uh,
ones over and over and over and over again. It's like, yeah, I get it. Like the
I
boat
have
ends
seen a
with the ink
few
thing.
funny videos, memes, but we will delve into internet lore when it's required. But
Yeah.
those are everyone's general impressions. I'm chuckling that Dan's biggest disappointment is no factions. It makes me think there's probably not going to be a lot of factions in the rest of
I
the
get
series.
it. I get why they cut him, but it's like,
I
you know,
know, I know.
maybe it's in deleted scenes.
Hope springs eternal.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I mean, like they made the and actually like one interesting thing is like they don't even have the ETO at all, right? It's not even called the ETO. It's just like
Oh,
the organization. Like they never mention like ETO in like show. That was pretty interesting, I thought. But I guess it's because like they don't call like they don't call them the Trisolarians, right? They call them the Santi. So I guess it's Earth Trisolaris. I don't know. I don't know why they don't didn't put it in there, but
I think it's because that's the reveal that it's Alpha Centauri and like how close it is. But
hmm,
I don't know. This is me 3 episodes in. I could be completely wrong.
yeah, who knows? Yeah, but I guess like I maybe we'll just kind of go through our different like parts of the show, and I think we the show starts out really strongly with
It starts
the
in the
yeah
Cultural Revolution. You guys want to talk about China in this show?
yeah. I mean, let's do it. Like one very obvious missing part of the Chinese adaptation, it was that they did not depict the Cultural Revolution for obvious censorship reasons over there. I'm watching them with my wife, who also watched the Chinese adaptation with me, and she's Chinese, and and she had remarked like, "Oh, didn't like her father kill himself?" I'm like, "No, he definitely did not." But they just adapted it that way for the Chinese one. But the interesting like the very like if you have subtitles on the show, like the very first line is "root out the bugs," which is like an interesting way to kick off the rest of the season. Given what we know about just the theme of bugs throughout the show and the series. But yeah, like I thought like the depiction was it seemed accurate to me. Like I wouldn't know, but like it seemed accurate. It seemed as brutal as it's described in the books. Like they didn't have the person at the very beginning getting shot off the wall, but still, like the beating of her father was just as brutal and
It
heartbreaking as
opens
you'd expect.
very gory.
Yeah,
Really felt the Weiss and Benioff little touch when
right.
they
Yeah, the
didn't cut away from those blows.
yeah, like when he's laying there and the blood is like running into his eye. Like, oh man, that's reminiscent of Pedro Pascal, his scene in the Game of Thrones series.
It's really interesting to see the Cultural Revolution in this adaptation and not in the Tencent one because, I mean, yeah, it is bloody and vicious and ghoulish, but it's also really not hyperbolic, like not that hyperbolic at all, to the point where like yes, we're in 2024, but the current president of China, Xi Jinping, half a century ago like took part in this. He was denounced as a counter-revolutionary. He was a child at the time, but if memory serves, I think his own mother, like Ye Jatai's wife, was forced to join in on this taunting. Like he was shipped off. Like it was not a long time ago at all. He had a family member that died during this, and seeing this intense abuse of a counter-revolutionary physics professor who dares to leave room for God by teaching about the Big Bang, uh, yeah, it doesn't feel like an exaggeration. It feels really grounded in a way that I didn't find grounded in the book.
Yeah, and seeing this scene and having recently returned to the book and in listening to the audiobook, I noticed how true to the book this scene remains, and that there's a description in the book of Shaolin. Shaolin is Ye Wenjie's mother, right?
Yep.
And she is described in the book as someone who is like kind of overacting her outrage because she's not used to whatever this is. She's not a good actor, basically, to depict that she's actually genuinely outraged by Yejitai. So I believe that the actress selected to play her role is kind of playing that description out really well, because she is kind of like going into like hysterics, like screaming and really illustrating a way higher level of outrage over this man, like as if she has just come to her senses. So I thought that was, the little details like that they bring in from the book in subtle ways are probably only, something book readers can appreciate. I think that gives book fans a lot to really love about the show. And I also have a question, which is that you know how you're saying that the 10-cent version couldn't depict the Cultural Revolution? I don't know if like you guys had discussed this in earlier episodes on the books, but I had wondered, and maybe I haven't like researched this on my own enough. How is it that Liu Cixin was able to write this? Because there's so many moments where I felt like, well, this book is being written in China, and how did they not censor all of this? Or like, how did they allow this to be published and then released to the wider world? So I don't know, perhaps you both can speak to that better, because I feel like you probably have more knowledge on that.
I don't think there's really a good answer. Like, I mean, the only answer that I've found plausible is that they just didn't care because it's some sci-fi book that no one's going to care about anyway. Or, it wasn't like strictly scrutinized like the way like if it was on TV, right? Like it's on the main Chinese like channel. I forget what it's called, like a CCTV, right? That's where the show was, so they had to like have more scrutiny around that. But it's just some book that got released, and probably some, some bureaucrat just like, said, okay, whatever,
That's so interesting
no one's
though,
gonna read this
because
thing.
because it's like kind of a miscalculation almost, given the popularity of the book now. So
I know, yeah. Now it's like, the main like, literary export of, like the past 20 years of China or something, right? Like that's what people like, worldwide people know about it. Um,
It's my understanding that in the mainland, there is the party line. The party line is officially denouncing the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. Like it acknowledges it's not like when you try and look up Tiananmen Square and just nothing comes up and it's completely blocked. It is a part of history, but they don't allow citizens to present detailed histories about like suffering and brutality that were experienced by these ordinary people. More just like, oh, it was a misguided idea, but it was of the past, moving on. So I
yeah.
think this kind of viscera would have been censored, and Liu Cixin managed to get around it, but who knows? I think Dan's got probably the right idea.
I mean that's I mean I've not heard a good explanation either. Like that's just like that makes the most sense to me of all the stuff I've heard of like how it actually like how he made it out there, right? Because like I
Can we
thought that
just
too.
collectively give a round of applause to the actress playing Ye Wenjie, though?
yes, I had added that
Yeah.
note as well. She is amazing.
She was
She's
great.
exactly as I picture the character.
Right from I saw in the very beginning when her dad like refuses to toe the party line and refuses to say like, no, of course there's no God. He's just saying like, no, well, science has not given evidence either way. Just like her crestfallen
Yeah,
look, not overdone. I'm just like,
That
I know
was so
exactly
good.
who that is, and I'm on her side.
definitely.
Yeah, the way that she emotes in every scene is just, even that cold, dead stare that she gives to characters who are wronging her, which is a lot of characters, is just so on point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much all the characters.
great actress. Great actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think notably also like from the show to the books, like there's a lot of like that of just like missing plot lines, and like I didn't miss them, but like I recognize them, as a person who's read this book, and now Tali, you have major revisions that you want to always make to the beginning of the book. But like just like whole big plot lines that are missing, uh, especially like after Wenjie is like sends the signal and like they have that whole plot line of her going to the village and giving birth, and then later on her going to like confront her mom, and then they had the three right guards that she confronted. So there's a lot of like that story that's just like missing. I was okay with that. The one thing I did miss, I would say that I understand why they did it. Is where they made her daughter Mike Evans's daughter instead of uh, Commander or or what is it, Commander? Anyway, Yang, Yang's the chief engineer from the base, and then the plotline of her murdering Lei and Yang when they are about to find the message, or did they find the message, or I don't remember now. But anyway, like like after she gets the message back and like they're able to get it, she devises that plot of like them going down the mountain, the cliffside, and like cutting the rope so they die. And so like that was like really impactful when I read it in the book. So I kind of did kind of miss that, but I do see like in the larger scope of things, like it's not as important. It's just like leading more to her character, showing like how cold and how killing she is, and like you guys said, like we see that from her acting and like her earlier um her earlier actions to, leading to this part. Did you guys miss anything from the China scenes, or were you good with how they depicted it?
I think I was good with it because I think that for me, the scenes that stood out the most were the scenes that we'll see a little bit later in this that we do see later in this episode with Bao Mulin when she comes to have uh, when she comes into possession of Silent Spring, and the scenes from the forest and the devastation juxtaposed with that. There's this one scene where they're just walking through forest that has not been uh ripped or torn down yet, and that was just beautiful, like beautifully filmed. And you see how haunting that experience might have been for her, and how impactful, and um like even if you're not like a tree hugger, it'll make you want to you feel for the devastation that's being wrought upon the natural landscape. And I think that that most impactful scene from the book is translated really well onto the screen.
I did not miss the scheme that she hatches to kill off Lei and ends up having to sacrifice her husband Yang, and the explanations that they have about that this is not a marriage of love, but more a marriage of convenience, and provided her some safety that she didn't have before. I didn't mind that was cut. I think partially because of the skill of the actress. I did like seeing what I interpreted. I don't know if anyone else saw this the same way, but it looked like she was seed bombing, after their hard labor conscription is to cut down all these trees. It looks like there's this shot where she's sort of illicitly scattering seeds.
Yeah,
Like,
that's how I interpret it too. Yeah.
Oh
yeah, so I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
little characterization moments like that that show that like she does break the rules. She is fearless. She knows it's wrong to point it at the sun. She does it anyway. And that was sort of the plot of, killing as well. As like, I had to do the wrong thing, but I did it anyway because, it matched the bigger goals of what I had. So I thought it was done well enough and I didn't miss anything. I would actually say that I wanted more of the Chinese scenes just because they were so compelling and fast paced in a way that the London, Oxford sometimes got a little slow for me, I'll be honest.
Throughout the entire time I was watching this show, I found myself wishing the book had set it up this way, where the scenes from the past are woven throughout the present day story. Because I remember I was trying to get Sid into reading the books, and I put it on for him on Audible, and he just kind of tuned out like a few chapters in. And I'm like, but you have to get through this to get to the good parts. And For some reason, for me, those parts were never boring, but I feel like it loses a lot of readers, and this is a better way of making it more digestible, I felt.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't get to pushing the button until end of like chapter 20 or something in the book, right? Because it's like not after, it's not even until after she's arrested from the meeting that she's, yeah, and she starts telling them like what happened. And if I remember right, it's been a little while, but yeah,
Yeah.
like the plot is not revealed. Like we don't even know that like what she did until way later. Yeah, and to kind of weave it into early episodes, and I was okay with the speed as well.
I wonder if we're gonna get more of that like slow reveal. We have a whole bunch of like who knows what when. Like
Hmm.
all of our revelations about Yang Dong happen after her suicide, because it happened so early. And I wonder if we're actually going to get those revelations in the show. Like we learned that she had this conversation with Ding Yi. We learned that she found her mother's hard drive and she knew about the entire conversation back and forth between the Trisolarans. And she learned a great wealth of knowledge. And, we'll see if Vera uh, also gets that level of characterization. But I can also easily see them giving that to another character, going in a different direction.
I will not spoil it, I guess.
That's fine. I mean, it's really just so the audience knows. The only reason Young is told that is so that the audience knows, and eventually, the audience, will know.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
whatever. You know the story. They do like with the
okay, cool.
we don't see Vera again, but we do learn that information later on.
I'm not that spoiler averse for
Yeah,
for the next 5 episodes.
yeah.
But
You know what happens.
how did people land with the Oxford Five? I'm curious if our reactions are going to mimic the general reaction of other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said, like I was hesitant. I think about like they're changing it like in the very beginning, and then I think I went the opposite way. Everyone's like, "Oh, Logi has to be Chinese, whatever." I'm like, "Who cares?" And I think then I started not caring as much. But then when I actually see like the camaraderie between the group, like it seems real. Like they did a really good job about building that camaraderie. And like I said, like having them all kind of know each other and having like a shared history is going to propel the emotional impact of the story like that much more. Um, Will especially, I think to me he was the standout of the show, and like that might be like a later episode thing. Like he doesn't really have that much to do in the first three episodes, but especially later on, he really is a kind of thing I think steals the show. I think mainly in the early episodes, like maybe when Jay like her the young actress especially like takes over the scene, but like Will is like carries the show like later on. Um, Especially the scene that like gave me like literal chills is like when he just learns he has cancer and like Moonlight Mile comes on by the Rolling Stones. Like they're just so well done, and he just like kind of like meandering through the London Underground and like he with his information, right, and like it's just so well done. um Tangentially, I think one thing that the showrunners probably love about the setting of the show is that they can use modern music because they do it a bunch of times throughout the show. Um, like they have Moonlight Mile
Yes.
here, they have Karma Police later on, and for episode three, and they have a couple other like big hits throughout the rest of the show. So I think they love
They
that
even
they.
have a Lana Del Rey in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Like later on in
Yeah.
the towards the end of the show, they have that, which is also a really great scene that we'll get to. um, I did like the camaraderie. I was sad to see Jack not survive it. Like that was like literally that was very surprising. I didn't think that they were gonna kill him because like John Bradley's like such a so he was like the face of the show, like kind of in the promotional material. So like that for them to kill him off like so early, like
It
that was pretty
worked. It got
surprising.
people watching.
Yeah, yeah. And hopefully got people like really invested in the story, right? Because like it's tough to I think sink your teeth into if you're not like a book reader. Like I don't know. Like I actually wonder like what people are gonna how react to it. Like people have no knowledge of the series at all. Like how like is it gonna like
Well, that
really
was
yeah
Sid, right? Sid had no book knowledge. I mean, as much as I tried to imbue book knowledge into him to get him to read the books, I think it all kind of, in one ear and out the other. So,
yeah
so like he kind of went into this and he was like, why didn't you pitch me this plot? And I was like, dude, I did. I very much did. I told you all of this. I even told you a lot of spoilery stuff, but I'm glad you forgot the spoilers so you can enjoy the show. So he was like, "You should have told me this. This is what it's about." I was like, "I did. I
So,
did. I
so,
very much did."
so what hooked him? Like, what was the hook that actually like
It
got him
was
into it?
just I think it was in part what I said earlier about the fact that the Cultural Revolution was it started out with that one scene, right? And then it cuts to present day. And I honestly do think that shows where you have like a group of friends are much more appealing to people because I feel like you immediately establish stakes that these characters all care for each other and they're working together. And I think that creates a dynamic that viewers are very much interested in versus having isolated characters because I think as humans, we like to look at characters in relation to other characters and what this person's life and history means to another person who is relative to them or in their lives. And of course, good banter is always more engaging to an audience. And all of that exists in the dynamic between the Oxford Five. And I think that reels people in and makes a book that and a show that's adapting very, very high level at times scientific concepts. It still makes them digestible to an audience because you have all this other stuff, this human angle that's being set up for you immediately versus later on. I feel like you have to get much further into the books to actually get those human interactions because earlier on, I feel like there is a past that's kind of being told to you. And of course, like a lot of people will care about Ye Wenjie's struggle, but I think that then you kind of go into Wang Miao, and I know that Dan, you've always had this thing about how his character is like kind of bland, right? Like at least I think that that's been my interpretation of everything you've said.
It's
He's a
not just
pretty
me. I think that's
You also
it's just a
said
fact.
everyone. Yes. Okay. No, no, I agree with you. I also think he's hella bland. So I think that having characters who aren't bland also helps. So I think that he was immediately into it. And I remember it was like we were 2 episodes in, and then it was like 12 a.m. or something. And I was like, should we call it a night or should we watch one more? And he's like, definitely watch one more. And normally he calls it a night by midnight. So I'm like, okay, he's totally into this. So I think that for a non-book reader, this show will still be very, very engaging.
Is he generally into sci-fi though, or like is he
It
like prime?
depends.
Is he prime for this kind of show?
Yes, that is true. He is primed for this type of show.
Yeah.
But I think that it really depends with sci-fi. So I think like a lot of sci-fi is either like a hit or a miss for him. So if it gets a little too convoluted, it could lose him very easily. Whereas I don't know, maybe I don't have that much patience for convoluted sci-fi because then Foundation kind of lost me. But but yeah, I think you could say that he is primed for this type of show. I don't know if somebody who's not into sci-fi probably wouldn't get into it.
Yeah, I let my sister know that she should watch it because I was watching the I saw a post about like how the viewer numbers are like kind of middling. Like it's like pretty good, but it's not like not awesome. So I was like, I need to tell people to watch this show. So I texted my sister like, hey, you should watch it. She's not really into
doing
she's not into
doing the
sci-fi at
hard
all.
work.
Yeah, she's not into sci-fi at all. So I said, uh, and this is how much I push for it. She said, all right. She said, I'll watch it if you watch Love Is Blind. And I was like, all right, I'll do it.
Oh God.
I
That is
that
that
part.
is a tough bargain.
I
Good for
know.
you, I guess.
I have nothing. I have no knowledge about it except it's like some reality show, right? So if it
Oh,
is,
dude.
I think it's really trash. Anyway, I don't want to create more enemies than I already have.
No spoilers for Love is Blind.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Um.
Let's talk about
Oh,
the
but I
character.
thought I had one more thing I want to talk about. So
Go
like
ahead.
Pri yeah, like Pri was mentioning like the relationship between the characters and like and how it's setting up like future interactions. Like I just think about when I first read the scene of Changxi knowing that Yun Ming like has a message for her, like how, and then like the when he meets her, even over like the screen, like how like emotionally impactful that is. And it's just going to be like a million times more because of the relationship we saw set up here. I'm so looking forward to that. I don't know if it's like season 2 or 3 or whatever, but like those kind of moments, and then also like when when Luo Ji tells like Chengqin and A to go, right? When they're on Pluto, like, and the knowing that Saul's gonna die from, or Luo Ji is gonna die from that, like it's just gonna be like a million times more impactful. Luo Ji is just like some mythical figure that that Chengqin knows because everyone knows Luo Ji, right? But here it's like it's her friend.
Oh God, Will is so, so, so lovable.
Yeah,
This story, you're totally right. It's gonna sting so much more with everything that happens after. Like, I remember when it becomes, when it's just about to become apparent that they're sending his brain off into space, Sid was like, "Oh, don't tell me they're gonna do that." And I'm like, this is not even the most ridiculous thing that's gonna happen to Yun Tianming, or like not Yun
Not the
Tianming.
most
Well,
heart-wrenching thing in store.
Will
yeah.
Downing's character is to go through so much more, but little do you know. And of course, I didn't say that. I just said, well, just wait and watch.
And they kept the boat scene, like the paper boat
Oh
scene from the books, and
God.
then they kept the seeds in the
Yes, the
capsule.
seeds. Yeah.
It's like, if all like the doubters, there are people like who didn't they think that Dan and Dave aren't going to care about like the books. Like they care about the books. It's very,
Yeah.
very clear. Like they put all these little details. Like Will was reading like a fairy tales book. Like Jin gives him a fairy tales book, and that
Mhm.
sets up like the fairy, like why Yin Tin Ming would tell her fairy tales later on. So good.
And I think one more point to that that relationship and that dynamic is that I feel, if memory serves me right, I felt like Yun Tianming had been set up as a character who you kind of feel sorry for, because like he's kind of set up as the guy who nobody really gives a crap about, like the guy who has failed in all his
Yeah.
endeavors, and who's kind of like, no one would care if like Yun Tianming disappeared off the earth, and that was his whole like character setup in the book. Whereas the change that they made here with Will, that he is well loved. He, even if he didn't get to be with the girl that he wants to be with, he still has a relationship with her prior to that is meaningful. That, there, even though she's not with him, she clearly cares for him deeply. And it's not this thing where she just like sends him kind of off to his death without really feeling anything. Like it seems like Shang-Chi in the book kind of doesn't really give much of a crap about him until she
Yeah.
finds out things later on about him after he's already gone. But I loved the fact that we were given a character who we care about from the beginning, because the other characters also care about him. He's kind of like the emotional and he is the emotional anchor of the Oxford Five in a sense. So
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Well, I think we're going to get into Will a lot later. We're still talking about the first 3 episodes, so like I think we're
Let's
already
stay in
delving
scope,
in.
y'all.
Yeah, it's just like I think Priya, you and I feel the same. We're just blown away by that aspect.
I
But
feel like I got all of this from just the first three episodes.
yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah.
yeah,
I
definitely.
wish I could live inside your brains. I didn't think it was a good move at all. I think it's super annoying that we don't get this character arc. I think the biggest satisfying part of Death's End was the sentence Yun Tianming was a victor in life, and the forgotten guy that nobody believed in accomplished this great feat for humanity. So I hope I am proven wrong, and I hope I like a lovable character even more, but I'm gonna hold on to my curmudgeonly ways privately while enjoying it as best I can.
I think they did try to do that though, because there are moments where Jack points out like, hey, you've kind of quit at everything that you tried, and he is shown as a little bit of an underachiever. But I mean, that they tried to do that, but you're like, how is a physics professor an underachiever, right? So it doesn't really come across as they intend, perhaps, but they tried.
No problem. There was stuff that I thought was done so well, and my favorite part of the first book was the VR sequences, and they have remained incredible in the first three episodes. I really like the way that that was done.
Yeah, I think let's dive into that. So I guess which of your of the VR scenes were your favorite, or like what parts like really stuck out to you? Because they seemed like, I mean, they were different, but they were like close enough, right? To like with the spirit of the of what the VR game was trying to show. Like they definitely condensed it a little bit, but they added like more humor to it as well, which I thought was great. Um, yeah. So I guess like what was your favorite of the VR scenes?
Mine, I mean,
Sure.
I just liked the opening one because it proves that they can do it, you know? It proves they can get super immersive and that the game knows who you are and whether or not you were invited. I have my own little quibbles with, the pacing, but there was just like immediate buy-in. I didn't mind that Dash and Wade were also interested in this game. I didn't mind that it was, not quite as private and niche as it was in the book. I think we there are some really funny moments in their interactions with other people in the game who are not NPCs that really just remind me like, oh yeah, these are gamers. Like they're calling themselves Galileo and Copernicus, but yeah, they're gonna be like flashing the bird and like throwing out slurs, and it's not too heavy-handed. Um, so I didn't mind people circling the truth, and all of the VR scenes were enjoyable.
I think like the decision to also kind of tie it into Changxin or Jin here, like caring about like people in general, just being an empathetic person, like I think was really smart. Like I didn't get that part. I didn't get that kind of sense from the game at all in the books. Like it's just like a you just have to solve the problem, right, and then understand like, oh, this is why like it's happening, and you're just getting the smarter scientist. But like it wasn't like related to like I really care about like the Trisolarian people or the Santi people. Um,
Point.
but here in the show, definitely like that's like the thing that Jack didn't understand, but Jin did, right? Where like the real hook of the game is to like understand the plight of the people, not to solve the unsolvable problem.
Which is also, I think, doing the work of like having an ETO and a factions. Like the people who are hardcore ETO have, drunk the Kool-Aid on this, in that like they empathize with this civilization who's unable to live, and the only realization that they get from trying to live in their world is like, my God, no one could live here. Like they're not all complete fanatics who all hate the earth. Like that's not a very believable villain. A much more believable adversarial opponent is someone who falls for something that you could also fall for, and you see the truth in it, and then they've taken it to this extreme. And I feel like that's what we're getting in Tatiana, is like someone who's been taken in a semi-reasonable train of thought down to an extreme level. So that's a really fun character to think about in terms of like an ETO stand-in.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Tatiana more because like as I was watching it, there's definitely something happening with her character that's not like very obvious. Like there's all these references to like her being like super old or supernatural or something like that. Like she, when she goes to the graveyard and meets Dasher there, like there's like a shot that lingers on like a grave like really long that said like uh what did it say? Like it said like Edith,
Our
Edith,
angel, and then
yeah,
she was like 4 years old. I
yeah, it
had a
was like
totally different take on
1909 or
that.
1905 to 1909 or something that's like really super old. And then like she gives the decoder to Augie, which like Saul then says, "Oh, they haven't made this since like the 60s, right?" Uh, she's obviously erased from the CCTV footage, which might be Sophon's, might who knows. She also like kind of mentions like offhandedly like, "Oh, where I'm from, I can see the stars." So like, I think there's something more to her than her just being a fanatical like follower.
Really?
um, I
I thought
think
that was the only thing. I thought that like she sees Dasher, she tries to get a leg up, and so she lies about her dad because he's talking about someone close, and it's just showing us that she's deceptive because she's just looking at like some rando grave. And I
I
thought
don't
that she was
I
just
don't think
scrubbed
so.
from the so fun. So maybe something funny is at work. I just liked how the book at least is such hard science fiction. The only way that it would be like even close to hard science fiction would be like if she's a hibernator, but we already know that it's 2024 and we don't have that kind of hibernation tech. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm just griping, but
Yeah, I
So
mean, it doesn't fit into the theme of the yeah, the science, that's for sure. But I don't know. I just get like the sense that like there's something more to it. Like when she talks about her father getting, shot in the head, like I don't know, they just they just lingered on it a little bit too much to I don't know. I just got like it gave me some sense that like something else is going on there.
conspiracy theory.
she
Right.
she's in a faction, that's for sure. Like there's no doubt in my mind.
Of course. I wanted to add in a few comments on the on what I enjoyed about the VR games, which was my top moment was you shut the up, troll,
Oh my gosh.
during the computer game scene, which was beautifully done. And when all Jin has to do is point out that, hey, this isn't gonna work, and they're like just immediately shutting her down like troll. And that's exactly what you would expect, right? From other players playing in the game at the same time as you. So you kind of are pulled back into reality that, hey, we're dealing with like other players who are
And
also trying.
that's what made me chuckle too.
Yeah. And then there's like another great moment where like as soon as Jack enters the game, invited this time and not uninvited, where he gets his like head cut off multiple times, which was hilarious. Um, he punches the dude like multiple times just to be like, hey, is this real? Is this a game? Like, are you affected by it? And then another great moment like of humor was like when the Count of the West is like, let the days pass by, and Jin just stands there and she doesn't know what he means by that. And then he repeats it like, let the days pass by, and she has no idea. And he's like, you just have to touch the ground to speed up the days, the
Yeah.
passage of time. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Like these moments that remind you, okay, because you're dealing with a game that's like that the whole thing about the game is like it's so realistic that it sucks you in, right? Like the whole thing is like, oh, she wasn't herself anymore because she's been sucked into this game that feels like reality now. And it's moments like this that remind you, oh, it's still a game. Like these are still people like occupying these roles. And that was like a good comic relief, I felt. And then overall, I found it really cool how the VR helmet is designed to look like what I imagine like the surface or the material that the droplet later on we find out is going to be made up of. So
Yeah.
I felt like they kind of designed the helmet in the design of the droplet. So that was really cool. That
Yeah.
there's this like material that we don't really think is of Earth, or it looks too sleek, too like futuristic, and that was cool.
Yeah, definitely. I had the same thought when I was watching it. I was like, oh, that's what the drop is gonna look like.
Mhm.
Okay, I think the next thing I want to talk about is the character of Raj, who we believe is a stand-in for Jong Bei-hai. It seems pretty obvious. He's a naval officer. There's a lot of allusions to sort of competing for resources and those kind of things. And later on, there's also stuff that makes it very obvious that he's Jong Bei-hai. Um, but I think the dinner scene was like an important one for Raj's character, but also for Jin's character. We get a little bit about the dimensionality, her nervously explaining dimensions of bread and how if you open up the bread, there's like whole civilizations in there potentially that she could be eating, which is probably an allusion to the Sofan creation scene. And then the whole story about Raj's father, competing for resources, to save his people, kind of going over to the other camp and getting the resources, and blowing them up, very strong allusions to what happens later on in the Battle of Darkness. Did you guys have any more observations about Raj's character, those scenes, or Raj in general?
I I felt like my Raj was like my one gripe about the show, because I felt like he was so like he was the bland character of the show. So I felt like I didn't really relate to his character at all, or like find him compelling, really. And I feel like perhaps that is a character that may get explored further in future seasons. So I'm holding out hope for that, because as it stands currently, I don't have much to say about the character other than the fact that I'm like meh about him, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, of course, his character being paired with Jin is overshadowed by the love that we feel for, or at least some of us feel for Will. Um, and it kind of makes Raj seem like he's kind of like the guy who we are not shipping, right? So
Hmm.
so yeah, I hope that changes because if he is supposed to be the analog for a book character, I would imagine that there will be more to come.
Yeah, he starts off being super enigmatic to all of us and especially to the people who work with him. Like they know that they don't understand this guy. Um, so it's possible we'll get more characterization of Zhang Beihai in the future.
Yeah, yeah, I'm guessing we're gonna yeah, we'll see all the cool stuff that John Behet does to to advance the technology. You know,
Yeah,
the bullets
so
made out of the
cool.
asteroids and stuff and yeah, definitely.
Because I sense like more emotion in his father's character in his like, I don't know, like 1 minute monologue than I sense from like Raj the entire time I've seen him in the show. So
Yeah.
there's
But I mean,
something to be said for that.
but isn't that I mean that's kind of the point of his character, right? He
Yeah, that's
is
what I was saying.
yeah, like he keeps all that stuff in, right? He doesn't let people know his
Really, really
emotions. Like
close.
yeah.
I guess, yeah, yeah, I can see that. I will reserve my judgment until season 2 comes out, whenever that comes out.
And then it will come tearing down your judgment.
Yes,
Um,
it will. It sure will.
Uh
I something I noticed about Zhang Beihai, or like things that are explored through Zhang Beihai specifically, was over and over this thematic repetition of if one survives, we all do. Um, and we, I think, both in science fiction and not in science fiction, even in like biology, we associate this sort of thinking with hive minds. Um, and Zhang Beihai, when he's waking up from his deep sea state, he reflects. He has this like private moment of thinking that natural selection is holographic, and he's saying that the part contains the whole. And book spoilers for book two, when Zhang Beihai is not chosen to, the metaphor they use is stay in Eden, to remain in Eden, and the another way to view that was that his ship was destroyed by infrasonic H bombs, just as he was planning to destroy the other ships with infrasonic H bombs. Um, he instantly understands and he smiles at Dongfang Yanshu and says, "It doesn't matter. It's all the same." Because he understands that they're not being hit by an asteroid, they're being hit by other humans, so other humans will survive. So if one survives, we all do. And I saw that being repeated over and over.
I think we can also talk about the character of Mike Evans a little bit. I don't have much to say about his early, like, you know, the early versions of Mike Evans are, you know, pretty much what they were in the books. You know, he's trying to save that. You know, he's a rich kid trying to save some species of bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think like the later, you know, the the Judgment Day version of Mike Evans, where he's like on the ship talking to the Sophons, was really impactful too. I thought that was a really good way to kind of visualize like how that would play out because like we know that he talked to the Trisolarans in the books, but I don't think we don't get like conversations like that I remember. I mean, maybe we get some like readout of it, but anyway, it seems more impactful here because it's like we can actually see him talking to them. I know Priya, you had some stuff you want to talk about regarding that.
Yeah, I mean, but my bigger question at first is how does a guy who's American suddenly end up having a badly done American accent in older age?
Is it
I
badly
can't.
done? Seems okay. I don't know.
It's pretty bad. Or maybe it's just because I know that that actor is British, so I'm hearing it more.
Uh,
But yeah, I think overall, I think there has been many a Brit who has done a better American accent than Jonathan Price, is what I will say.
I mean, he just sounded like the
Um,
High Sparrow to me from Game of Thrones. Like that's the only thing I could think
yes,
of.
and
You
he's
know?
not supposed to sound like the High Sparrow from Game of
I
Thrones.
mean, yeah,
He's an
he's basically
American dude.
yeah he's basically just the High Sparrow. Yeah. So,
Did either of
Yes.
you watch Arrested Development?
yep.
Do you remember when they have that plot with Rita
Yeah.
um, in Wee Britain? And Rita is played by Charlize Theron. And one of her notes is like, "Oh, I hate when they hire Americans to play Brits. You can always tell." It was like a really hackneyed English accent the whole time. I think it's so funny.
I used to always say that Brits can do an American accent way better than Americans can do a Brit accent. So I stand corrected now after I've heard this one because I was like, come on. This is not this is a little jarring. That's my biggest gripe about the show, actually.
I didn't even notice.
I
So
didn't notice at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
Um,
Well, we all notice different things as it turns out.
right.
And this one was mine. But
sorry, that's your biggest gripe. I have so many bigger problems for you.
Yeah.
Um, but to actually comment on the scenes that I found intriguing with Evans in them is where he is reading to the Santi or the Trisolarans, and it's not so much what he's saying, but what they're saying in response to him. That's just so chilling. And I thought that the voice of Sofan is so perfect and it's so haunting, and it's almost like you feel like the pauses where they're kind of like trying to understand a response that they have received from Evans, and those pauses are so laden with tension, and like you can almost hear the wheels spinning in their collective brains on the other end and trying to decipher and analyze, and it's like does not compute certain things, right? And other things that they do compute, they come to like very, very horrifying conclusions on their basis. It's like, oh, so if humans who do not fear, the human race would have gone extinct if you followed fearless leaders. And it's just like, oh gosh, like, and then their conclusion is humans must learn to fear again. And I think that in that moment, the look on Evans's face makes you wonder if he feels in those moments like, oh shit, we're in way over our heads with this.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like gone way like did we get this right? Like did we make the logical conclusions that we should have on the basis of no information basically on who these people are? So yeah, these moments they tell us a lot about what the people who know the most about the Santi at this point and how little they actually do know.
one thing I noticed is when he's having this fairy tale reading to the Sophons, and we hear Sophon's voice on the radio, it instantly soothed the part of me that wanted to see the Sophons in text, because it's so much emphasis about like Trisolaran language is never spoken and the Trisolarans don't communicate with anything vocal. It is just such a perfect match that, I just smoothed over, didn't mind that at all.
Okay, well, that's all the topics we have. Anything else that you want to talk about, or?
Oh, yeah, just about the Sophons in particular. Ramin Waji's soundtrack is definitely appreciated. I do find it very heavy-handed, the music during the countdown. Like, I do appreciate the fact that this countdown in the book is so supernatural, but also so mundane. It's just like it doesn't go anywhere. And having it like accompanied with this like tense psycho like strings music, sort of I know it's meant to show the like heightened panic that the character has when they see the countdown, but I do think it's important to sort of indicate that the Sophons are able to create these visual illusions. So I find the music a little heavy-handed there, but I'm still really looking forward to the other things, and I hope they can pull the suspense out as long as possible over 8 episodes, and then see how season 2 happens and see what they get picked up for. But I think everything else I have to say, I can definitely wait for next week.
I will make one last comment about and this is something I should have probably said in the beginning, but the opening sequence, I think I've been paying a little more attention to opening sequences since a few of my favorite podcast not favorite podcasts, but like favorite shows, I should say, or good shows that I've watched recently, and podcasts on them have pointed out like the significance of what's depicted in the opening sequences. And we know that from Game of Thrones, the opening sequences were very meaningful. This one, I didn't necessarily know, like dissect it to that extent, but one thing that it did remind me of was the opening sequence for Westworld for some reason, like the vibe of the music, like the mood rather that it builds, and I thought that was really well done because I thought Westworld has one of the best opening sequences. So
But they
I
only
liked
show
that.
it. They only show it once, right? They
I
and
only
the
saw it
only
once. Yeah.
yeah, like and that's the whole like the rest of the
Is
like the
that is it that they're showing it only once, or is it that Netflix automatically kind of just skips that when you're
no, I think
watching subsequent
No, it's
episodes?
only once I've gone back. It's only once.
Really? I could
yeah
have sworn I saw it more than once
they
in
have
like more than one
they
episode.
they have like the short
Indicative of,
they have the shortened version, but it's only like 5 seconds or
yeah, it's just like
something.
a flash. It's indicative of how I feel Netflix is shoehorning a lot of things together. Can't even get through uh, one
Interesting.
season. But my bitterness notwithstanding, I'm still very excited to see
In any
more.
case, I did like the opening sequence is all I wanted to say, and that it reminded me of Westworld.
And I guess my final thought is like, you're reminding me is that I hate that they released all 8 episodes at once. They should have done it weekly. It would have benefited so much by having like a slow burn of this mysteries
Agreed.
playing out rather than just like binging the whole thing and then people, most people are just gonna forget about it, right? If they had like if like had one episode every week for 8 weeks, I think it would have been a lot better. And hopefully, like for future seasons, they'll do that.
There's a part of me that agrees with you, and then there's the part of me that loves to binge that like is like, no, I'm glad to have all of them at once. But then there is like I look back to like, Game of Thrones being on and how like, having that there for like 8 weeks or so was like an experience. Like, oh, this is the time of the this Game of Thrones season, whatever it was, where
Yeah.
we spent that summer watching Game of Thrones, right? Like that feeling that you get. So I totally hear you on that.
My best TV watching experience in my life has been when Lost was on the air, and like we got to experience that in like real time and like talk about it with people.
Yeah.
Ah, my God! Like there's been nothing that's matched that, and like just like the pure like speculation train, and like there wasn't even like like Reddit like there was now, right? Like I don't even know if there was like a show like that again, how crazy it would go. And so I want this show to be that kind of same experience because like especially season one, right? It's like a mystery that you're kind of building up to. And like you think about like, oh, what do the numbers mean? What all this stuff? Like it would have been, I think it would have benefited a lot for being a weekly show instead of here's 8 hours of TV. You should watch it when you watch it, and like there's no shared, even this show, right? Like there's no shared like time frame that people can like do it. Like you do the best you can, but like like people have different you know they've gone through progress at different rates, right? So
Also, now I'm just realizing, oh my gosh, we could talk about this show forever because we didn't even really talk about Dasha's character.
yeah, well,
I guess we'll save him for the
yeah,
future episodes because there's a lot to be said about him as well.
for sure.
Um,
And
and yeah, overall impressions are I really like how he's been depicted so far, but I guess we will save his character for when we can also talk about him in relation to another character in his life. So,
yeah, as I was just gonna say, like I think next episode would be a good time to talk about him more.
yes, exactly.
So, thanks for listening. Please check out rehydrate.space for release episodes, reading lists, pronunciation guides, and all the other stuff we put out there. Leave comments by emailing us at rehydrate@festmail.com, on Twitter at rehydratepod, or on Mastodon at rehydrate@mass.to. And join us next episode for Season 9, Episode 2, Judgment Day, covering episodes 4 and 5 of The Three Body Problem.